So there's an understanding that most people won't understand this, and that it will probably be misinterpreted. Because I had a thought a while ago, because I've been noticing more and more fall away, and the emptying out seems in a way faster because it just seems faster. So then there was this thought of like, is this what people are describing when they talk about enlightenment? And then it was quickly followed by no, because whatever idea I had about what they were saying was not it. Because you can't imagine this, you can't think about it, because that's never it. It's not it. Because nothing can ever describe this. It can never touch it. So life was never about you. Life was never about me. It never even really registered me because it's so beyond me or you or any concept of solid reality in that way, in objectification, in things, in story. It's so beyond any of that, you know? And I use beyond because I can't really think of a better word. So the past couple days, there have been some moments where it's just really obvious that no one's here. And that was already kind of known. But now it's like, wow, it's just the environment. Meaning it's just this. You know, the environment is just a word, but it's just a feeling. If there's a feeling, that's the environment. If there's a thought, there's just a thought, you know, it's not personal. It doesn't belong to anyone. I can't even claim it. It doesn't even stick to anything. So it's very fleeting. The way this body functions is changing, and it's like adjusting, because when thoughts don't stick, I have to write things down a lot more because they're gone very quickly. Everything's ephemeral. Everything is not solid and real. And they were never solid and real, but there was this perception or ability for these things to solidify or stick to something, a center that felt like me, but was also never really real or true. And so as the dissolving of that center is happening, it can feel like at times it's even more all about you, because when you're feeling through the oscillation of the relief and the devastation that this isn't about you, that there's no point to life, that there is no actual purpose or meaning, because that's all mind created. How can that be truth? How can that be real? So when a dying is happening, of being conditioned or de-brainwashed from this massive you're going the opposite way of society. This thing called society, which isn't a real thing. But you're going kind of the opposite way of it until it kind of all just collapses, and then there is no here or there. There is no opposite. There is no me against society. There is no society then, There is no me, there is no society, there are no others. And so it all just collapses, and it's just this. Just the environment, just what is. It becomes almost impossible to relate to things, like, because there is no relation anymore, and maybe echoes of it can arise, but it's barely there, and it quickly goes. It barely is in existence, and that's how everything is now. So the beauty to it, in a way, I mean, not really. It's really difficult to say, like, this is beautiful or this is horrible. I can't do that dance anymore. It's just simply what it is. I mean, I can do the dance. I can remember what it felt like, but that's not in existence here. It doesn't really oscillate anymore. Not nearly in the same way. Feelings and emotions have a very different sense to it because it's not mine anymore. It's not here anymore. It just is. It just appears. It's almost more like a mist. And a story can't really it's not really linked anymore. Not in the same way. And if a story arises, it's very fleeting. Yeah, it's very strange. You can't get that much of a reaction because, or you're not that bothered by that much. You can still be bothered by stuff, but it's different. You're not in a personal story anymore. The world isn't really revolving around you anymore. There are just some natural ups and downs and aches and pains of the body. And so because of that, there can be a reaction that arises. But really, other than that, you're not here anymore. You don't exist anymore. There is no continuation of your story anymore. And so as that story is dying, it can feel really horrible. It can feel like an unburdening as well at times. But as the death is happening, it is kind of like, since the way in which the body is perceiving things is also changing, the feelings that arise can be quite extreme and intense. Because you're also kind of feeling for the first time. You can sense that you never really felt before. This is just really different. This is to a different degree. This is to an extent where it's very foundational. There isn't something relating to it and making a story that is believable out of it. It just is what it is. And that's quite different from the masks and the labels and the knowing of what it is. It kind of hides it. It shields it. But when it's just purely what it is, it's just that pure sensation. And there is no real knowing. And it's just that. Yeah, it's strange. Only then are things able to really leave. And it's not that you know that it's leaving, it just has a different sense to it. You kind of feel like sometimes it's the last time you'll be feeling this. I remember thinking that, like, oh, how beautiful it was to just cry with such devastation and heartbreak. And I don't know, I could feel that this was the last time that I would feel it this way. And it's not that it was necessarily true. It was, because nothing is ever replicated. Nothing. But the person can feel like it's very familiar, it's very similar, because it somehow retains things. But here, everything is fresh and new. Everything is for the first time. Everything is for the last time. It's dying as it's coming, you know? So as things are falling away, I think it's quite normal for the mind to be like, well, what's gonna happen if I really let this go? What's gonna happen? And I think that's quite normal. Another thing I was noticing is that, you know, since I'm around family and friends again, I'm kind of noticing that the psychology of I kind of knew where my weaknesses were, or the areas in which I suffered the most. It was by um, the pain of saying no and the pain of not doing what others wanted was so immense that it was really hard to set boundaries. So even though it was really painful, I had to learn just to say no, basically, in all of these different ways over and over, as painful as it was and as wrong as it felt. I kind of knew that it was kind of right, but it felt so wrong because of how I was conditioned, raised, programmed, whatever you want to call it. And now I would say that the psychology or the idea of setting boundaries or like that doesn't really arise. It doesn't really make sense anymore. It kind of just diminished. It kind of just evaporated or isn't needed in that way, in that mental storyline way, because that was the story of Suzanne. And that rarely arises. It doesn't even, it barely comes up, if ever. I have to just remember it if I want to recollect what it was like, but it barely comes up now. So that story isn't relevant, and those phrases or terms or labels or ways of being, they're not really relevant anymore. So yeah, it really just feels like it's very basic, foundational, biological. The body is kind of leading. Like, so it can't function in the same way as in knowing that a future exists. That is not here anymore. So there isn't that burden of, oh, I have to be there for someone, or and on top of that, when the body is just kind of like, it helped out, it did what it wanted to do and helped as much as it could, but it's tired now. And it simply just wants to rest. So I noticed that there is a very natural just reporting of that in a way. Like, I don't sound weird. I still sound like a person to other people, and I say it in a way that will make sense to them. But it's very not such a big deal because I think not much is triggered or brought up in the body anymore. So yeah, I just report that it's unlikely that that will happen. And there's such a gentle ease to it, and like I'm not fraught with, oh, I should have, am I bad, will they hate me, what's wrong with me, should I reach out again, could I do more, should I do more, which is a lot of how Suzanne used to function, or that was here, that was very, very common. And maybe like a tiny little echo of that arose, but it barely had any strength or power at all. It was just kind of seen. It was just able to be seen. And that's more of what happens nowadays. It's really just able to be seen. And it's not that you are space, or you are just noticing, or you just dissolve. Like that sense that just that sense dissolved, and what's here is just complete, vast unknown. It's like emptiness, or it's life. There's no edge to it. Like there's no distinction, or there's just no way to differentiate anything. Yeah, and I guess it's quite clear that the only way that that really happens is by the solidity and reality of me softens. It goes. And there isn't even a strong desire for this to happen, to want this to happen for others. There's no desire at all, because that was the person, that's part of the effects of this and that, and better and worse, and going somewhere in time. And so that dissolves too. And so it's just this. It's very simple. So it is fall, but today is particularly warm. Yeah, I've been wearing coats and stuff, but today it's just exceptionally warm. The leaves are falling and changing colors, and it is gorgeous. Gorgeous. Bye-bye. Oh my god, my legs are asleep. So let's walk around a little bit. Oh my god, if I can get up. Oh. So pretty. the audio was okay in this video. You know, I'm sure that this will go eventually as well. I mean, I'm not sure about anything, so I don't really know. But there is some hesitation in really describing what this is like now. I mean, I did just describe it. There's such an absolute simplicity to life. You know, there's no knowing of anything. There's just, yeah, I don't even know what this is, but I suppose it is. I think only when I mentally compare it am I like, it is quite beautiful that I have seen what it's like to be a person in absolute turmoil and hating oneself and hating life and desperate for freedom. And there was such beauty in Suzanne and how she really wanted to help people and heal herself, perhaps heal others. And there was always this kind of innocence also, like in a way I just couldn't do the things that I thought were dishonest or like and it really didn't. At times maybe it became an identity. I'm sure that happened, because as long as the person's there, like it, yeah, that just happens. But there was something deeper of like when I saw something that wasn't right, I just couldn't go along with it. I couldn't pretend. I couldn't force myself to be like others in that way. I just couldn't. And a part of me, I think, would have rather just was okay with ending up with less if, yeah. And I couldn't do the other thing to like get more money or to step on people or to make people feel less than. I just, yeah, I could never do that. I don't know why I'm saying this. Oh my god, this little path is so cute. So there's such beauty to the person, there really is, but it can't see beyond itself. It can't really see that there is no true exit from this whole maze of the mind mind's interpretation of what's happening, and the real belief that there is a solid right and wrong, and as long as that's there, there is a sort of entrapment or a constriction or a natural inability to see clearly. And within that dream, it's really hard to separate it like this, because in a way it doesn't even matter anymore. Like, if there's a dream, if there isn't, it's just all this in a way. So excuse the language, but within the dream, what was I saying? There's this little spot where I could just sit right here. In the dream. In the dream, it can go on forever. Forever. Never ending. Because the story never ends. As long as there's a story, it just never ends, you know? And there is no doubt that there is beauty and horror in the story. It is just that way. There is complexity. There is up and down. There is here and there. There is failure and triumph. There is everything. All of the opposites. All of the this and that. All of the... The colors are so gorgeous. Yeah, it's just all of it. It's so juicy. It's so flavorful. It's so complex. It's so... It's absolute chaos. And you could appear to have order in that chaos. It can appear that way. It's very strange, because the knowing can solidify things to a degree where it's like it can appear very orderly and solid and partially safe, not completely, because you'll still feel constricted in ways. Still won't feel completely free. Okay, but I think the reason I was saying how beautiful and horrible life as Suzanne was because at the end, not that I even knew it was the end, because there's basically just the knowing dissolves. But at the apparent end, it kind of really felt like all there was again, excuse the language. All there was this like complete acceptance or allowance or unconditional love of everything, of all of the person, of all of it, all the chaos, all the this and that and here and there, and the nonsense and the knowing and the turmoil inside and the woundedness. And there was such an okayness, a depth of There was just an ability, I guess, that was there to see it completely in a different light. And I've never loved Suzanne that much. I've never just seen the beauty of it all. Like, oh, okay, she was never a problem. Like, oh, it was never a problem. And I also do think that there was an instance where, because there was such a tightness eventually around, like, you need to set boundaries, you need to say no, because it caused me a lot of suffering, so understandably so. But there was such a tightness around it, like that had to be the way. Oh my god, look at these colors. Without my face. Oh my god, so gorgeous. Yeah, so because of that, I hope it's not too loud. There was such a rigidity in that area. I don't even know if this is really true now, because memory is so, like, wonky. Oh, yeah, there was such a rigidity in that way. And I think there was a real loosening of that, like an allowance of myself to just fucking be myself. Like, fucking finally, without judgment, without the spiritual nonsense, without the this is better than that, and this is more spiritual than that, this is more respectable than that, this is the right way because everyone is saying it's the right way. Like, fuck all of that shit. There was just a time where it was like, fuck it, I'm just, in a way I couldn't even choose not to be myself. Wait, you know, I couldn't choose anything else. It was just what it is. And I could kind of sense that this needed to run its course. It needed to just play out finally, without the fucking judgment and the self-ridicule and the self-hatred. And sure, that could arise at times, but it was much less believed in, because it was like, this is me, this is like how I am, this was how I was raised or brought up. Like, and everyone has their thing. It's not like you're born here clean slate with nothing. That's impossible. It's like literally impossible. So there was like, there was this, I didn't do it, but there was a deeper acceptance of, this is how I am. And it wasn't like, it's not that I opened up to people who were really harmful. It also kind of felt right and safe to play this out with someone that, for some reason, there was a trust, and I couldn't really explain it, but there just was. And I played out this overgiving, or this need to help, this need to be there for people. It was intense, you know, the need was so strong, and it was able to play out to its heart's content, because in a way it was never allowed to. And when you're young, I could see how it was nice to just see how much suffering it caused, and to restrain and to learn different things. But now it was like, I knew all of that shit, and I was still doing that shit. So how much control is there? Like, that's what was obvious to me. Like, who's in control here? You thought, or I thought, that I was in control of how this body functioned, but it was so clear. No, there wasn't. Yeah, the danger of like talking about this stuff so publicly is like it will be misinterpreted. But what isn't misinterpreted? Yeah, so there was just this, unowned, it wasn't personal, a totally impersonal, complete allowance. Finally, an acceptance, finally, a surrender, finally, this is it. This is how I am, baby, and it is what it is. And it's crazy now that I can say like that's not even relevant here anymore. It just doesn't make sense anymore. Something really collapsed, something was really grieved, mourned, lost. It disappeared, and now it's so simple. It's so in the moment. It's so this. It's so whatever is. So I don't think about this, but it's more just what the body feels. How the body feels. And it's not even interpreted anymore, really. I could still, tell a story about it. Make a story about it, but there is such a it's so hard to describe. It's just clean. It's unadulterated. Energy.